Today I want to talk about something that is coming up a lot more for state agencies, which is the trend towards video, which goes under the banner of a video first strategy, which essentially means that when you're looking at doing any kind of marketing, you first think about whether it's possible to do it with video, and if so, you do it with video, and if not, you do whatever. A blog doesn't mean it's video only; it means it's video first. Anyway, but one of the big hurdles a lot of agencies are finding is the huge amount of investment, time, energy, resources required to do a video. It might be an area guide, might be an interview, whatever, a vlog. And then they upload it to YouTube. It just kind of sits there. And 2 weeks later, it's got 103 views. And it's very hard to justify that sort of effort for such a low return investment. So what I'm trying to explain here, and I'm only going to go in it in a very basic detail, but it's the idea that how you use a video first strategy in conjunction with what I would call micro content. And this is the idea. This is the concept. You do the main video. Let's say, for argument's sake, it's an interview with an architect, a Marbella architect. And in that interview, you discuss their background. You discuss some of the developments that they've worked on. You discuss how the area Marbella has changed over the last 25 years. And you discuss what new trends there are within the architectural world in relation to like the luxury property, for argument's sake. So you do your video, you pay your chaps, or you have an in-house team, or whatever it's called, whatever the situation is, and they do the video. Yes, you put it on your YouTube channel. And now this is going to become, think of some sort of Star Wars concept. It's going to be your mothership. So the big video is there. It's maybe 30 minutes long. The first thing that people are going to say is no one's going to watch a video that's 30 minutes long. It's just not true. They will. Will you watch it if you're not interested in architecture? Probably not. Will you watch it if you're not looking to buy in Puerto Banús, for argument's sake? Probably not. Will someone who's looking to buy in that area? Probably will. Will someone that's thinking of hiring the architect? Probably will. You get my picture. And then on YouTube, what you do is you add the chapters so people can jump around. So if they are only really interested in what the new property trends are, they can jump to that part. You make sure you have the subtitles or the captions. So that and YouTube provides these for free. You just have to make sure you go through it and tidy them up, because it'll get the wrong names, and there'll be 35 different versions of what Marbella is as a word, particularly with people's names. So you tidy up the captions. Now suddenly the video is actually got the subtitles. Google will see those subtitles, and if somebody searches for something that's relevant to new architectural trends in Marbella, for argument's sake, that chapter within the video will show up in the search results. That was an algorithm change from about 1.5 years ago that Google did, where they're looking at multimedia, and they can now look at video content and bring that up as a result. So you have a little bit of a fringe benefit there. And then it depends on the agency what happens next. But let's just use some examples. Let's say it's a typical estate agency that has a blog, that has several social networks, and has a YouTube channel. So that's most of the agencies here. So with the blog, they hire a company that writes stuff, but they never write anything interesting. Nobody looks at it, and it's just a bit of a wet weekend, and everybody's wondering what's the point. The SEO company tells you that you should be doing it because quality content and content is king, and all these buzzwords from 2015. Not saying it's incorrect, but anyway. So suddenly, rather than having to hire someone to look at the local newspaper and write 500 words about the new tunnel, which is not going to index particularly well on Google, none of your buyers particularly care. They're certainly not going to go to your website for news, in this case. You got this 35-minute conversation with a renowned architect with chapters, and you've got 3, 4, 5 pieces of separate content that you can tidy up into a blog format or an interview format for your blog. That's super original content that nobody else has, and that you don't have to pay someone to originate it. You just have to pay someone to curate it, to tidy it up. So there's your blog. Then you take some of the chapters, and the chapters then become individual videos that you can share on LinkedIn, on Facebook, if you're on Facebook, on Instagram. Maybe within those chapters, you can get 3, 4, 5 little soundbite reels for Instagram. Maybe you want to do a podcast and you get an account with SoundCloud, which will then distribute your content off to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You take that video file, that 35-minute chat, and you upload it to SoundCloud, and off it goes to podcast. But what I'm saying is that you basically got then material. You're not going to be posting that every single day, but you got a bucket load of material. Some of it will be lasting forever. Not just that, but the actual person that you spoke to will then, if you've done a good job interviewing them and they're pleased with the result, they will share it throughout their networks, and that will expose you to their sphere of influence. Yes, there'll be some crossover, but there'll be quite a lot that doesn't. And that's a sort of reputation by association that you can't buy. Well, maybe you can buy it, but it's expensive. So suddenly you have this renowned architect that has a lot of good reputation, that's been in Marbella for 35, 40 years, and he's sharing the conversation they had with your agency. That's kind of like an indirect thumbs up. And it's a bit of adds credibility. And this is something that if you build a regular, frequent content policy for doing these videos, each time you're creating a mass of micro content that you can use. You're no longer just having to put new listing posts and just crap from third parties and hope that it's going to spread. Now, I'm not going to go into what networks you should be using and what networks you shouldn't be using and which ones are good for real estate and which ones aren't. I'm just trying to explain the concept that investment into that video, if you just stick it on YouTube, then it is wasted. It's just wasted investment, and it's going to sit there, because there's one final point to think about, and that is, as a modern content strategy, and it's a simple principle, but it's where most people or agencies fall down, is you gotta create good content that your audience, the audience that you have in mind will consume. So you do something really good that the people that you want to see it, and they like it. So good content that your target audience will consume. Most agencies struggle with one or two or both of those things. Very few can do both. Why? Because they don't know how to distribute content. That's the video that goes up to YouTube. They can figure that bit out, but there it sits. Nothing happens with it. So the good content, but no, it is not being consumed by their target market. Or they don't know what they're doing with social networks, and on LinkedIn they're talking about 325 days sunshine as if it's B2C, when in reality they're talking to other agents and collaborators, which doesn't ring true. Or they hire an external agency to do their social media and that sort of thing. But because they're not you, and they're not in your head, and they're not with you, and they're not in your office, and they're not with your people, and they're not at the open house, and they can't originate decent content, but they can do a good job distributing shit content, excuse my language. So with this idea of video first, with using it as micro content, what you have is good quality content. And does that mean that you should get rid of the social media company that you have at the moment that's giving you vanilla content? No. If they're good at distributing and they know what they're talking about, you're going to be giving them some really chunky, good content to actually distribute. And you just have to have a plan. And that one video that you paid, one way, indirectly or directly, you paid several hundred up to thousands for, is no longer just sat on YouTube gathering dust. So that's the general concept of video first, and then using it for micro content. And if you're doing a video a month or 2 videos a month, which doesn't seem like a lot, it soon builds up. And it starts gathering momentum, and it's a cumulative effect. The main thing to remember is, if you have limited resources, and that be time and or money, is put your maximum resources into what is going to give you the most benefit and that's going to have the longest shelf life. So don't put all your money on something that's only going to be of interest for 2 days. Put your money into something that's going to have a longer term, and make sure it's core to the interests of your audience. And your audience may be other agents and collaborators if you're a listing agent that relies on those relationships. And in many cases, it nearly always also is B2C, i.e. your buyers or people that might want to rent the properties that you have. And you need to understand where you're most likely going to get to them and to make sure that the language reflects that. But you're always trying to keep offering value without any cheesy strap lines of content is king and provide value and empathy and all the BS that people like me like to share. It's actually genuine. Talk about something you're an expert in to the audience that you would normally speak to, who would normally be interested in what you have to say, and amplify it. And that's the idea.
You're struggling to make sense of your online marketing for your Costa del Sol real estate agency? My old buddy Alfredo at Bloy Dawson Consulting can help you.